Welcome back to Joe Stunner Boxing. Abdullah Mason is a name that's been associated with, the best world world boxing prospects, and with pretty good reason. Because although this young man from Ohio is only 20 years old, he has looked the part, at least in terms of offense. 15 wins with 13 KOs, no draws, no defeats. Southpaw, good skills, kind of a stand-up style. Not the quickest feet, but decent, but very quick hands. He looks the part. He's been feasting on lower level guys and blowing them out of the water in 2 or 3 rounds. So he's kind of, C plus level fighters. And he took on Yohan Vasquez, who's 10 years older at 30, from the Dominican Republic, based in the Bronx in New York. His last 4 fights have been in the US. He's lost 3 of them, 1 by stoppage. 26 wins with 21 KOs, though. And of his overall 5 defeats, 1 has been by stoppage. But his last fight, he did beat an undefeated guy called Kamil Laszczyk, I think his name was. Obviously of Polish origin, I would say. He knocked him out in 2 rounds. And this guy was 30 wins, no draws, no defeats. So that was a good win. But could he take on Abdullah Mason, one of these, gilt-edged prospects that everyone thinks is a surefire, can't miss? Well, he almost did it, but not quite. Because Mason stopped him in the 2nd round, but you talk about that doesn't tell the whole story. It really doesn't. Because a minute into the 1st round, a left hook from Vasquez put Mason down. It was a flash knockdown, but nevertheless, it landed clean. It didn't look like the hardest of punches. There was some meat on it, but not a really hard punch, and over goes Mason. Mason gets up and it's payback time. But again, he's a southpaw. He stands very upright. He's got that upright style, good skills. But at 20 years old, you don't expect him to have his man strength. And he was standing in front of Vasquez, who clearly is a grown man at 30. And he got hit with another right hand and he shook. And then within a split second later, he fired his own left hook almost instinctively. And down goes Vasquez. Now, this is not a flash knockdown. Vasquez, he was shaken. He got up and he looked hurt. And when the fight resumed, Mason went straight after him, as you should, was, looking to finish him off. Vasquez tottering around the ring, tottered back to the ropes. And Mason, you thought that knockout's coming, and then bang, a left hook from Vasquez, another left hook, landed on Mason's jaw. It was an accurate punch, flush punch. Again, good punch, but not really what you would call a knockout punch, but a very good punch. And down goes Mason again. So Mason, who's never been on the floor before, is suddenly, on the canvas twice. He gets up, survives the round. In the 2nd round, you thought, what the hell's coming next? All right. Well, it was, again, southpaw Mason trying to sort of box fight. He doesn't spend all his time on the front foot. He seems to like it on the back foot. He seems to have more success on the back foot. Maybe he likes it on the front foot when he's going forward and putting pressure on. But he seems to have a bit more success when he's a little bit more conservative, a little bit more cautious. And Vasquez, who's the orthodox fighter, he didn't seem that fussed about the southpaw stance of Mason. Mason's footwork it's not bad, it's just not quick. He tends to plant his feet a bit too much. And because he has that upright style, and he needs to tighten his defence as well, there are a few gaps like around the corners, and when he is trying to be proactive and come forward and land his own offence, the defence goes a little bit loose. But in the 2nd round, it was the first minute and a half, 2 minutes, I think it was really a case of Mason trying to find his range. This is the impression I got, trying to find his range. I think Vasquez was still hurt from that knockdown in the first round, even though he scored 2 of his own. Mason was trying to find his range, trying to get his rhythm going. And then towards the end of the round, he did. And he went at Vasquez. And you would think, well, this suits Vasquez. But Vasquez looked under the cosh. He looked like he was feeling the pace and feeling like I say, he hadn't quite recovered from that first round. Because that one knockdown did far more damage to Vasquez than the 2 he scored against Mason did against Mason. You know, there was just too much effect that he couldn't shake off in the second round. And so when Mason did step to him and got in close and started unloading combinations, you got the feeling that Vasquez wasn't enjoying it, even though on paper it looked like that was his kind of fight. Mason, to his credit, was firing a lot of good body punches, very good body punches, mixing up very, very well. And this was only an 8-rounder, but they were having an effect, and you got the feeling, I'm not sure Vasquez can take all of this. He needs another one of those Hail Mary blows to get the momentum back. But he didn't get it because Mason bangs to the body. There were at least 2, like a left, right, maybe a right, left with his southpaw. Yeah, probably a right, left to the body. Vasquez trying to fight back, but Mason was sticking to him like a limpet, and then he landed a brilliant left uppercut to the solar plexus, which put Vasquez down and out on all fours. And that was that. That was that. You know, I mean, it was a hell of a comeback by Mason. What an exciting fight. Only like 5 minutes long, but in that first round. Now, what do we make of this? Well, let's start with the good stuff. Mason fought a guy who was 10 years older than him and clearly had his man strength and clearly was as good as he's going to get. And did have a glossy record and is clearly capable of beating fighters who are, C plus level. And throwing in the odd upset here and there. Not a bad gatekeeper stroke journeyman. Now, allowing for the fact that Mason's only 20 and hasn't matured physically, it was nevertheless a little bit disturbing to see him clipped and go on the floor so easily. And it wasn't really like he was being hurt. It was a case of when he's clipped, he hit the floor. And it could just be an aberration, this is an exception to the rule. But I don't like to see it, especially in young fighters, when they're hit with not innocuous punches, that would be wrong, decent punches, and they go on the floor. I like to see a little bit of resiliency. Now, it could be that when Mason his body does fill out and he gets that strength and he will become more resilient. He will have, a better chin. He will have, and his power might increase because he's got power. Clearly, he's got very good power. He's got very good skills. He threads his punches together very nicely, and there's a good IQ in there as well, ring IQ. Because, like I say, once he found his range, he went on the front foot and started to, stitch punches together very, very well, body to head and head to body, both hands. So that's all good. That's all good. But there's just a slight question mark for me over the punch resistance. And again, I'm not condemning the kid because 20 years of age is still a baby as far as I'm concerned. These are lightweights, by the way. But I do, I think he needs. The problem has been that he has had things his own way with these 2 and 3 round knockouts, and he's looked like $1 million. Very impressive on the front foot, but he's not got the rounds in. Unlike, say, someone like Keyshawn Davis, who's got a very similar record, but has been 10 rounds several times and has fought better quality of opposition. But then he's older. He's 5 years older than Abdullah. So I don't want to sound like I'm being too critical of Abdullah. I do think he needs to be a little bit more conservative, not to the point where he's not going forward. But you've got to use your brain in there. I know this is a statement of the obvious, but you've got to use yes, you've got the skills, but you've got to accept that potentially the opponent has danger in his fists. And therefore you've got to say, okay, I'm going to do what I'm going to do, but at the same time, I'm not going to neglect defense. I'm not going to I'm not going to assume, subconsciously maybe, that this guy can't hurt me. And nor am I going to assume that I'm just going to land my punches like I normally do and get you out of there in 2 or 3 rounds. You know, there is that youthful, double-edged mentality that can be had where you don't know you can be beaten, which is a good thing because it means you've got less fear than you would have. But the flip side of that is that a little bit of fear can sharpen the mind and just make you a little bit cautious. I don't mean cautious in the sense that you go into a shell or you don't throw the punches that you feel you should throw or you instinctively want to throw. I mean, you need to just have one eye on, you know, defense. It's like the trapeze artist. The trapeze artist isn't thinking about the net below. If he or she was to fall, they would be caught by the net. They're not thinking about that. They're thinking about what they're doing on the trapeze. If they do make a mistake, the trapeze, the net is there. Boxers need to have a slight element of that to their makeup, and it needs to be bred into them, practiced again and again and again, repetition, repetition, repetition in the gym, so that you're not leaving holes in your defense. Your hand is nice and tight defensively when you're moving forward. That the split seconds where you're not firing punches, your defense is locked in again. And I think the art of boxing, you know, hit and not be hit. Another way of putting it is that the perfect fighter, which has never existed, but we've had a few that have come pretty close to it, has defense and offense locked together. So that's what needs to be worked on. A few 10-rounders where he can go through his repertoire of skills, but also a few questions are asked. Let him mature physically at his own rate. Don't rush him. He's definitely not ready for world titles, Abdullah Mason. Nowhere near it. No hurry. Maybe a few other fighters like Yohan Vasquez, who could possibly take you rounds. I mean, he got blown out in 2, didn't he? But you need durable gatekeeper types who are going to ask questions of this kid. And this kid might end up looking not very good for a couple of fights. You know, he might struggle over 10. He might, you know. But if he's getting the rounds in and he's learning ways in which to implement his skills, his positives, rather than just think I'm going to go in there and blast you. I don't really care what's coming back at me, which is a very cavalier and somewhat foolish way to fight. At least in the boxing ring, anyway. Yeah, we need more rounds. We need more rounds, I think. But nevertheless, you know, very good fighter, very good skills, definitely a good prospect. But let's stop with the hype and the fanfare and look at the reality of what needs to be worked on. That's what I would say. So what did you think? Did you see this fight? What do you think of Abdullah Mason in general? I like him. Hopefully the criticism I've given in this video is regarded as constructive because I want him to succeed. You know, I'm not just slagging the guy off. But let me know what you think. Comments below. Please subscribe to the channel if you're new and you like the video. If you like the video, hit the like button because they count the likes. Thank you. Thank you very much for watching. As always, I'm looking forward to reading your comments, and bye for now.